This is the World Innovators Podcast with your host, Donna Peterson.
In order to have a relationship with someone, you have to know and understand them. And today I am so happy to be talking with Lisa Pistilli, who is the VP of Business Development at Leicester and the president of MCMA, Media and Content Marketing Association. She is going to help us really kind of understand how you have to have that good house file so that you can truly know and understand your audience. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you are listening to the World Innovators Podcast. I talk with business owners and marketing executives all around the world about marketing trends and techniques, what's working, what's not, and really, how can we all do it better? So let's jump in. Good afternoon, Lisa. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Donna. Thank you for having me. I'm really well, and I'm so excited to be here with you. So thank you again for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. I think what you and I have talked about before on the phone offers so much value to companies and individuals. And that's why I wanted to get it out. And as you know, that's why I even started the podcast in the first place, is because people have to be talking about quality ways of marketing to get good results.
Agreed.
And as I mentioned above, and I think you've heard me say this before, I feel relationship building is the new marketing. And in order to build those nice relationships with people, one of the first steps I'll tell my clients is you have to have a clean house file with all the fields. And so why do you feel that is so important?
So I think it takes a second I think we should take a step back. And 10, 20 years ago, when audits were still super big for B2B publishers, everybody talked about, or at least in my world when I worked for a trade publisher, was, the cleanliness of your file, how updated it was in terms of aging. Would it be a 1 year, 2 year, like 80-20, 90-10? Sometimes you had 100% that were updated every year, every record. So, the evolution of audience and the age of a data file has dramatically changed over about 20 years, where it was originally so super important. And then it went to more of a content-based, then it shifted to social or digital, and then it came all the way back to audience. So it's been a really interesting ride if you've been in audience management. I mean, that's the way I look at it, in all honesty. And I've been pretty hands-on in the B2B and some B2C audience world, plus some associations, in terms of how to keep the files clean and updated and the importance of it. And what I feel is that in that up and down the roller coaster or the full circle, whichever way you want to look at it, the priority shift over time directly affects the quality and the cleanliness of a data file. So I think I have more of an interesting perspective because, again, I did work for a B2B publisher, and I was in charge of my own audience files for about 6 years, and I had varying industries. And then I sort of switched to the opposite side and worked with a vendor that I was working with. And it's given me, and then I worked with so many different trade publishers and consumer publishers that it has changed my perspective on a lot. And you have to ride it. Yeah. So I think the fabulous thing right now is that everything is shifted back to audience, but with also a strong focus on content and marketing. So I think there's no more of which one is more important. It's all three are important right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So that's it. And then, it's fun to be able to work with different publishers and hear everybody else's different perspective and which publisher is wanting this or what sales team wants this. And, as you know, when you talk to your clients, it's okay, what's most important this year? What should we focus on? And, since things have been a little wonky, shall we say, due to the pandemic, and then when the world sort of shut down immediately, and now we're back up a little bit, things have gone up and down. And I think that once again, I think it's really exciting to see all three pieces of the puzzle really come into play.
Yeah.
So when we talk about data and house files or internal files or the CRMs or huge databases, that are housed anywhere, pick a fulfillment house or internal, aging and data decay are a major point of discussion.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I can tell you all the reasons why.
Well, that's a good point, because I talk to clients about why they need to make sure they fill out all the fields get all the fields of their house file and keep it cleaned and updated. But, that decay issue, like you just said, does come up. And now, what do you see as your percentage of decay each year on a house file?
So interestingly enough, I would say about 6 or 7 years ago, Lester created a proprietary software program, essentially, that addresses data decay. Okay, so that was when we really started getting really down and dirty and analyzing our clients' files in terms of what are we finding in terms of what's actually decaying on a file, because the days of because of the cost, the days of most publishers being able to update a full, let's just say, file of any type in 1 year, the cost is significant. So Lester created this proprietary software called Monitor, Discover, Grow. The first step of it, called Monitor, monitors the data decay. Okay, this is literally the first thing we do for our clients, is that it takes a file and it runs it through social media channels. Okay, and this is all proprietary. This is all outside of any platform. Lester created its own algorithms and basically built a super search engine. So I don't want anybody to be concerned about that. But the bottom line is this: we analyze our clients' files and can tell them, this is your X amount of decay across your file. Now, what I find most interesting, and I've said this for years now that I've learned it, data decay actually correlates with the government statistics about the job statistics that they come out with every month, and that essentially your files age about, we use 12 to 15%. Is the high and the low. I think it's like 13. That's my number.
Yeah.
But every file is about 13% a year. There is a churn. Now, if you're not updating the most current piece of your file, so let's say you're focusing on your 2-year and 3-year, and you're just leaving everybody in theory that's 1 year, that group is going to age about 13%. Okay, that's what we've found across varying industries, you name it, from restaurants to engineers. It still seems to be about 13%.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Even across different industries, you're still saying 13%.
I would say that that's my number. Now, some people don't like the number 13. So you can say 12, you can say 14, but give or take, that's where it is.
Tomato, I don't know.
Right. It is what it is. So, that's truly from our experience over, I'm telling you, it's got to be 6-7 years already. That's truly what we found. And then, not to go too far into it, but then we help our clients address it, update it, and grow files. I mean, that's what Lester does. And I know that's not what we're going to really talk about, but that's from the process of what we've learned. That is truly what you're looking at, in our opinion, across multiple industries. Really, I think that it's safe to say that that's close to the industry standard.
Good. Well, it's important to take in the decay issue, like you said, because, I'm saying about, building a relationship, you have to know and understand your audience, but you got to make sure you're understanding the right people and where they're at.
So, in the B2B and I would say B2C world, in some cases, it's your core audience is going to want to renew, let's just say, a subscription or re-engage with a white paper or a webinar or a webcast, whatever you want to call it these days. Like, the names all change.
Yes.
The bottom line is your core audience is going to want to engage. Okay. If it's relevant, if its content is on point and you're actually reaching them, they are going to want to engage. So when you talk about why is it so important to have a clean data file or a clean house file or a clean database, you name it. This is why it's so important, because it's only going to increase your engagement, your responsiveness, the clicks. Pick it. If the file is updated, clean, appropriate for what you're putting out there, and your content is right on, you will see engagement and responsiveness. That's my true belief, based on all of the different types of programs, whether it was healthcare or engineering or you name it. That's really what we're seeing.
Oh, I hear it. You're preaching to the choir here, because I'm like, oh.
But tell you, it's amazing that when the files are relevant, updated, whatever. And when we talk to our clients, and they're going to go pick, and I'm not supporting anybody or anything, but any database that they can go and buy or rent from, okay,
Right.
Whichever way you want to phrase it. My first thing that I tell everyone is you want to pull on recency. Your number one piece of criteria when you pull a data file is on absolutely, is it the last 3 months that you can pull on, last 6 months, no more than a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. And then you know what, if it's working, you can go back and buy more.
Yes.
And that's, or rent, buy, rent, whatever the agreement is that, and you know this more than I do.
Yes. Yes.
But that is the number one piece of information. That data point is going to drive everything, in my opinion.
No,
so
your opinion's right. Your opinion's right, because with anything we do with our clients, it's always, we want the most engaged records, but we also want the most recently engaged records, because I don't think people are aware some of the lists that are out there cover a wide span of years. They can be 5 years old sometimes. And obviously what someone was doing 5 years ago and what they're doing now, especially with COVID and what happened, they may not be in the same title. They may not be at the same company. And who knows if they have the same email. Or if postal address, forget it, that might be out too, because maybe they're working at home now and they no longer go to the office.
Exactly. No, you're dead on.
Yeah.
So someone I work with who's pretty important had said to me once, he said, somebody else had done a big promotion about, they have a database of 100 million records or something like that. And he looked at me and said, Lise, the minute that anybody says they have a database of that, or they create or compile a database like that, the next minute it's aging.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no way that anybody can afford to update that in any context of like 6 months or a year. It's too big. It's too much money. Yeah. So it's that always comes back in my mind, is that great. Okay. You got 2 million records. You got 100 million records. Congratulations. But how many in the last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year have actually either been updated by some sort of authentication or verification, either an email that, yes, this is still my name, this is at least still my email address, or they clicked, opened, and engaged. Yes. Okay. So I think that those are relevant, criteria points that if this is where you are, this is your space, know what you're looking at and understand why it's so important, or you're going to have, you're going to buy data that's not going to work.
Right. Or you're going to be using mediocre data that's not going to work. Even for someone who owns their own database, as you know, you shouldn't be emailing to unengaged records. That only hurts your, open rates and click rates, where open rates, that's another whole conversation now with mail privacy protection coming up. But, if you're sending out those emails to everyone on your database and there's a whole section that do not engage with you. I was talking to a client this morning and they said out of their file, which was 100 and something thousand, only 45% really engaged with them. So they don't email the rest of them, which good for them,
right,
where a lot of people don't.
So I've had conversations in the last week with clients, and I said, you know what, if you can afford it, if there's a budget, why don't you set up certain programs? And we look, for what we do, it can be email, it could be phone, it could be creating a file, whatever, but create, and this is for everybody, and I really would say this to anyone, is set aside, and well, to be fair, I've said this for years, set aside a small amount of money per month. Okay, and I'm not saying 10,000 or whatever, 100,000 a month. Put me a small amount of money. Let's say you're investing in your database, and create an ongoing program, the steady drip through the year. Okay, so if it's 500 records and we have over 5,000 new records by the end of the year, or if it's 1,000 records, you'll have 12,000 records by the end of the year. But that steady drip of fresh, relevant, updated, engaged, sources of leads. Okay, for anything, and you can call it a lead, you can call it a subscriber, you can call it anything you want. It will keep the water churning. It keeps it fresh. So that, you're not hit with a massive wall of how much, 55% that isn't engaged. Yeah. Okay, because the next question is, what are you going to do with the 55% that aren't doing anything? Yeah, they're just sitting on your file. You're probably renting them or selling them or giving them to advertisers that aren't doing anything, and it's deflating your open rates, your engagement for your editorial.
Yep. Right? The value of your list, the value of your house list, people's house lists, and I don't think some companies do this. It's a valuable asset for you as a company.
I think it's the biggest asset because
it is, because if you don't have a good customer list, what do you have? And now you see how, the different platforms, their logarithms will change. I had one client one time goes, I don't really use my house list. I only use LinkedIn. And I'm like, I said, no, you have to have your own data. You have to, one, because you need to use it to promote it yourself. You can't always be looking at LinkedIn to do your promotions. You've got to do your own email. And like you just talked about, you want to have a nice marketing campaign across several different channels. That's the best way to nurture someone. And just like you said, with the different words, whether it's omni-channel, 360-degree, multi-channel, I don't care what you want to call it, it's the same thing. And the only way to do that is with a house file where you have all those fields and they're all cleaned and updated.
What you said about your client with the 45%, that 55% that's not engaged is dry or not updated or not responsive. Pick your word. Okay, I don't care what it is, but that's deflating, driving down their editorial responsiveness and engagement. How do you, for me, it's my first question to anybody is, well, how old is it? And what, did you engage, not engage? What kind of response rates are you getting? And if somebody said that to me, it's like, oh my God, you're not going to get where you need to go because such a huge, more than half are too old, or they're, if it's a high turnover industry, so maybe the turnover is 15% a year, maybe it's 18%, you're not getting read by that percentage. And that's just driving everything down. So I had a conversation, as being involved with the MCMA, with someone, and I said to them, I really feel like audience is just like we were talking, I believe it is the core of everything. Yeah. You can have the greatest content in the world. You can have as many, Neil Award editors and publishers as you want. But if nobody's reading it, if nobody is opening, engaging, commenting, sharing in any platform, I don't care if it's print, digital, online, whatever, if nobody's reading it, it doesn't matter that it won all these awards, because it's just poof, it's just dead air. Yeah. And so for me, I truly, and to be fair, I was heavily involved when I was an audience for a publisher with my sales teams. Okay, I understood how the magazines were sold in terms of advertising. Okay, and we had award-winning journalists as editors. So as much as I truly believe that this is audience coming of age, I do believe that. The fact that content is now almost, they're running neck and neck right now, thankfully. Yes. That it creates this beautiful situation where it's okay. Now let us as marketers do our job. Yes. Pick a channel, email, phone, newsletters, web, I don't care, Twitter, pick a platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. If you've got amazing content and updated audience, relevant, recently and engaged, appropriate audience, you should be hitting it out of the park. I mean, there's in my mind, there's no way not to win when those things are aligned. That I really do believe that.
Again, I totally agree. And I would do my angels again, but I don't think people want to hear me sing it one more time. But the same thing, because from your house file, you learn about the people, who they are, what title they're in, what industry they're in, what's their sales revenue. And the more you know about those people, that's when you're able to create that content that resonates with them, and like you said, if you put the right content in front of the right people, they're going to respond. And that's when you're going to see, people subscribing or buying, whatever they're doing, they're going to be taking action because you're speaking to them. You're offering them the value that they need.
No, it's a thing. So with us, if you're involved in this industry, if you're involved in print, digital, any product that is delivering value through content, you need an audience to read it. Okay. It's just that simple. So again, it's that. So for your client with the 55% that's dormant or unengaged or aged out or whatever, this is where for me as a marketer, it's okay. We have to address that situation. Because so even if they put, budgeted a small amount of money per month at the end of a year, okay, whatever that 55% number actually is, if you set up the steady drip after 2 years, hopefully you've got that number back down in half.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're down to 25% or 30, let's say 30, which isn't that out of line with most databases, is at least they're more current. They're coming in, you're getting traction. Something is, and I wish that all publishers, media companies, entities, name it, I don't know what you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But if you don't keep your database updated, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you're saying, if you go after those people that are not engaged, they're hopefully going to help you with that decaying of your file because you're going to bring them over to the engaged category. And so that quantity is at least going to stay constant, if not increasing, which is what you want.
So what we do, I'll do one more thing about Lester, is we'll go out and we'll figure out, so the people that aren't engaged, it part of what we do is we find out if there is a replacement for that person. So the person's probably no longer there. Okay. So it's finding a replacement or a referral name. And then we start looking for more appropriate leads or titles or names at a certain entity and try to build out a funnel of leads that will give us something to market to. So whether we're phone calling or whether we're emailing, whatever that is to update, refresh, engage, and grow a file. Okay. That's what we do at Lester in terms of trying to help our clients with those problems.
So let me just, for our listeners, so if I had ABC company and say it was Tom Jones, but he's no longer there, you're able to then find the person that maybe took his position or anyone else within that ABC company that would be in a title that would be of interest to what your client is offering. Okay.
That's what we do on a multi-step. So there's multiple different ways we can do it, where we can either just provide the list or we can do, marketing to them through one of the channels that we use to update the record. And then you're bringing in fresh leads, fresh content, not content, but fresh contacts to your file to start, boosting engagement. And that's what it's all about.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Thank you for listening to the World Innovators Podcast. For more information about today's topic, email us at dpeterson@worldinnovators.com or call 860-210-8088. And please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode.